In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Afternoon, Tiro. It is my pleasure to welcome a very special panel this week on In Full Zoom. We're going to talk a little bit about the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors for the CNMI, and no other than the governor of the CNMI himself, the Honorable Ralph DLG Torres, is with us today. He is the actual co-chair of the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors. Welcome, Governor.
Welcome, Hafaday and Tiro again. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to reach out. For the Governor's Economic Council of Advisors, it's really just composed with our private sectors to come in and talk on how the government can partner up and look at some issues, whether it's permitting, just other issues that the private sectors are going through. We want to have a seamless process to get them up and running. As you know, and I always say this, strong partnership with the government, with our private sector is the key for economic growth. So with our pandemic, it was an excellent time for us to bring in our private sectors and sit down and really have a good communication, good chat, and to get into the details on what we need to change. And I'm very blessed to have Jerry Tan as our chair. And of course, we have Mike Sablan, and we have good representative within the business community that has put in their time.
Thank you, Governor. And let me just also introduce the two other panelists today. As the Governor mentioned, Mike Sablan is here, and he is you got a long title here, Mike, so let me read this. GCEA Chairperson of the Domestic Policy Recovery Committee, also on the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board, and your day job, you're Vice President of Triple J Enterprises.
That's correct.
And of course, we also have Priscilla Yakupov, and she, of course, is the Managing Director of the Marianas Visitors Authority. Thank you again for joining us today. Mike, let me just ask you to see if you can elaborate a little bit more on what the governor just said about the mission and vision of the GCEA.
Sure. Firstly, Nestor, thank you again for the invitation. Last year, I think around May, the governor set up the Economic Council and included in it a very good cross-section of our community, including representatives from the government sector, the governor's office, agencies, and legislature, and key players in the business and tourism community here. I think, Governor, around 20 of us in the council, and thanks to Governor and co-chairman Jerry Tan, they had the foresight to divide the council into three committees, one looking at short-term initiatives that we can maybe implement while we all wait for the pandemic to clear off our islands. Another committee the governor set up was looking at midterm initiatives related to tourism resumption, and a long-term committee looking at more infrastructural long-term changes. So good composition. We have representatives from the medical community as well to guide us through these pandemic times.
Yeah, and Priscilla, I see here in my talking point notes that part of the overall concept and vision is to grow tourism, which of course, like Guam, is the single largest and important private sector industry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so the Marianas Visitors Authority, along with the Commonwealth Ports Authority, had worked closely with the governor's office and the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors to really build and plan a tourism resumption investment plan, other known as the CNMI TRIP. And so Governor Torres had led the CNMI delegation to South Korea to sign the travel bubble agreement between South Korea and the CNMI, which is both the first agreement ever.
Right. Yeah. The Korean, the visitors are just starting to come back to Guam. We've got, I think, 3 airlines that are servicing us now on regular flights other than previously charters. But Governor, talk a little bit more about the sustainably developing the Marianas as a multi-island destination to also include Rota and Tinian.
Well, to these governors, the economic advisors, we brought in some good consultants to look at and really market CNMI, the Marianas, as multi-destination, where we look at what Rota has and promote that and see what the uniqueness of Rota, because I'll tell you, every island is unique. Every island has its beauty, not just the people, but the island, the beach. I mean, there's so much things that we are putting our emphasis. And the exciting part here is not just Rota and Tinian, but also reaching out to the northern islands. So hopefully by next year we'll have something in concrete, more to also add that into the MVA Marianas experience for Rota and Tinian. But yeah, we promote. We've been working with the mayor's office as well, private sectors on these islands. So yeah, we're really excited, and to the trip program, we hope that our tourists come here and not just enjoy Saipan, but also be able to fly to Tinian and Rota.
Yeah, and transportation, of course, is going to be a very important part of that, both air and I guess, will there be availability of, sea transfer, ocean transfer?
We are working extremely hard to get to work with our current airline here, but also hopefully additional airline that would assist in getting a more scheduled flights to Rota and Tinian.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah. Mike, talk a little bit about the importance of what Priscilla was talking about, that travel bubble. How does that come along, and what are your thoughts on the prospects of that going forward?
I think very good prospects. Nestor, and I commend the governor and his COVID-19 task force for keeping our community safe. As you may know, we are one of the safest destinations in the whole world for tourism, and that was no accident. That was through careful mitigation efforts up front, identifying the risks and taking care of our community. So today, a year and a half after COVID started, we are ready to start welcoming tourists. But the safeguards are in place to protect our community. We're very proud that we are, I guess, South Korea's first approved travel air bubble, and there's a lot of excitement in the air about that, and hopefully the flights increase as people have more confidence traveling to Saipan and visiting the other islands, as the governor mentioned. But in our community, we all recognize there are risks, and the governor has always made it a priority to protect our community as we resume tourism. A year ago, shortly after COVID started, no one could have imagined this pandemic would take this long and the effect on our tourism economy would be this protracted. But I think now we're starting to see the light coming up, and hopefully it becomes brighter and brighter as we move forward. Exciting times ahead, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, as Mike mentioned, Governor, what has been the local community's reaction to kind of the reopening of tourism? Are they kind of apprehensive, or they're welcoming tourists with open arms? Or somewhere in between? What has been the community's reaction?
Well, there's always a concern, right? Like what Mr. Sablan said, we're concerned as well. But looking at the track record, not just the governor's directives, but an network of protecting the community. And I think everyone too has recognized that it's time to move forward. It's time to have our tourists and welcome tourists. And because we're able to protect each other here, it's easy now for us to protect tourists when they come in. So in the private also inform them that one, their priority, their health priority is still healthcare is our priority, and that is still our number one. Two, the restriction that we have, the protocol that we have, is still in place. In those travelers that are coming, you want to make sure they're vaccinated, and we're forward to it. I believe record, and there's still some strict protocols.
Yeah. And Priscilla, how are you getting the messaging out, and what has been the message, and how have the markets, your target markets, been reacting?
So we work closely with our MBA Korea office, our offshore office, and so they are in constant communications with our travel trade partners from travel agencies, airlines, and other tourism association groups. And so they've actually advertised a lot of their travel packages. And so we've also included a lot of incentives for all sorts of, whether it will be for the tourists, travel agencies, airlines, and of course our businesses here in the CNMI. And so one example would be the Marianas travel bucks. And so the number of days would determine the amount for tourists to receive. So for example, if they are staying here for less than 7 nights, they will receive $250 per island. And then if they're here for more than 7 nights, they will receive $500 per island. And this is just to help, stimulate our economy here, as well as, we know it's already been over a year and a half, and our only industry, which is tourism, has definitely put on a pause. And so these are just strategies that we've worked together with the governor and, the governor's council as well.
Yeah, Guam's also considering that $500 cash, I guess, or debit card for the tourists. It's an idea that has kind of gotten a lukewarm reaction. A lot of residents saying, just give us the money. But, we see the value in, of course, that providing an incentive to tourists that they will also spend it on local businesses. So it will stimulate the economy in that sense too. Governor, I wanted to ask you about also some other community, community enhancements that you're doing to make the islands even more attractive to tourists.
Well, we have the PPP, which is public-private partnership. This has really boosted up in the community. I believe we have 56 private partners that will sign an MOU for 5 years. And this goals expands up to 60 different tourist sites, whether it's actual tourist sites or the medium of the road, the beach, buildings, and this across Saipan Road and Tinian. And when you have 50 plus partnership, private partnership, it's really a community, right? And the private sectors have stepped up and say, tourists is our #1 industry. And therefore putting their name, their company name, their logo, the volunteer, it makes CNMI really a place that says, this is our home and we're going to build it, and we're going to build it right. Our goal is to make the CNMI, the Marianas, world-class destination. It's definitely not going to be next year or the following year, but we're putting the strong foundation and have everybody at stake. Everybody's a shareholder, whether you're a private citizen or a business partnership. So we're really excited, and now we have more private partners coming in. We have the legislatures signing an MOU, even the fact that it's a 2-year in representative, but they're willing to take that initiative that our office is going to take this part of tourism sites, and they put their name on there. So there's a lot of accountability and pride to these sites, and I want to thank their partnership.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah, Mike, speaking from the private sector perspective, the business community, what are your thoughts on that?
Firstly, I'm just surprised at the response from the business community and the private sector. The governor mentioned over 55, maybe 56 partnerships have been established. The response has been phenomenal. I think it's a great community effort, help lift the spirit of the community during these really challenging times we're all facing. A lot of the changes, Nestor, are long overdue, and I'm glad that we all came together and refurbished our sites, our basketball courts, our beaches, and tourist sites. there are some bigger transformational changes that are in the works that the council has been working with the governor's office to not just refurbish, but make major changes to our tourist destination sites here, like Suicide Cliff and Bird Island, things like that. So it's a good community effort, and thanks to the governor and his team, I think it's helped lift the spirit among us during these really unprecedented times. And all of this is just to beautify our community, not just for the tourists, but for our residents as well. The basketball courts have been a big improvement in all the villages, not only here in Saipan, but Rhoda and Tinian. Great to see the kids out there. Yeah.
Let me ask Priscilla and the governor, what has been the impact of the pandemic on tourist-related businesses? Has there been a number that have had to fold in the past year and a half because of the lack of tourists? What happened, and where are you right now in terms of your tourism industry position? Go ahead, Gov. Start.
Well, yeah, there's some shops that has closed down. Unfortunately, some of the watercraft shops, some restaurant has closed down. But with this now, is having the travel bubble agreement has really brought some hope back, and that's exactly what we want to do, right? With the travel box, if you go to Rhoda, you get to spend a certain amount. If you go to Tina, you get to spend a certain amount. So it really brings that hope, like what Mr. Sablan was saying, that hey, everyone around the world has suffered, has gone through the same process, but reviving the economy back and bringing our tourists is a priority for all of us. So seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, they're one to come back and come back stronger.
Yeah, and Priscilla, you of course work very closely with all of these tourism industry related businesses. What's your perspective on how the pandemic has impacted them?
Nestor, and this is part of the CNMI Tourism Resumption Investment Plan. And so what had happened was we also provide incentives to our travel agencies, to help motivate them to sell CNMI as a destination. And, we're providing them monetary incentives, subsidies. And not just that, as part of the trip, we actually also included corridor hotels, meaning that we are investing for them to open at 100% full services 7 days a week as well, because during the whole pandemic, our hotels have shut down and then a few had opened with limited services. But through this CNMI Tourism Investment Plan, we are able to support them to open all of their facilities, whether that would be from all their restaurants, their bars, their swimming pools, the gym amenities. And most importantly is the 24 hours services that they can provide for all guests to be here. And I just wanted to add, Nestor, that the MVA had also launched out, along with the governor's office, the Hafide and Tito Pledge. And this encompasses, the action of Tafan Un Corazon, Sibuy Tipio, which means, to be united. And we also actually open this to all individuals, whether you're public sector, private sector, to really showcase, our indigenous cultures of the Chamorro and Carolinian. And this has also been launched in our islands of Rhoda and Tinian as well.
Sounds great. Governor, I wanted to ask about the labor situation. On Guam, we have, of course, been sustained by the federal government's pandemic unemployment assistance. How has the labor situation been impacted in the CNMI? And once the tourism industry gets going again, are you going to be able to fill the necessary slots to get the tourism going again?
So I think under the construction labor, no, we won't have enough. Definitely not. I mean, just projects that we have because of our Typhoon Sodilor, Super Typhoon U2, Mangkhut. I mean, just that alone, we're looking at close to $800 million infrastructure that needs to be built, homes. So that part, we need more construction workers here. We're saturated here. And then for the hospitality part, I think that we're able to sustain to a certain amount of rooms. But other than that, at the end of the day, we need to get our workforce back in track in order for us to give 100% service to our tourism. And that's the reason why we have strong working relationship with our private partners. And I hope that we continue to work with our NMTI, which is our trade school, and some other trade institute here. The government is in full support to all of them because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we provide jobs, bring them back, and then also give full service and good experience for our tourism.
Yeah, and we just got word this week this week the Congress will be, I guess, voting to pass a massive over $1 trillion infrastructure package. Hopefully, the territories will get a little piece of that pie once it passes Congress. Mike, from the private sector vantage point, what's the labor situation looking for you guys?
As the governor mentioned, definitely a shortage of construction workers. But in the non-construction trades, our company, Triple J, for example, is one of many businesses that were directly impacted by the loss of tourism. We had to close some restaurants here in Guam. Thank goodness for the federal government's assistance and providing for these families who have lost their source of income. But those benefits have a sunset provision. And we need to get our economy back up and running to create more jobs for those that were laid off and furloughed. Many of them, Governor, I understand, here and in Guam have relocated to the States for opportunities because opportunities are limited here. As the governor mentioned, we have over $500 million in typhoon-related federal funding and another $500 million in ARPA funding and highway funding and DOI funding for projects. So one of the priorities that the Economic Council undertook early last year was to see what we can do to streamline permitting processes, procurement processes to get these projects off the ground without delay until tourism returns. And that's been the focus of the Economic Council for many months. And there's been progress. I understand, Governor, your infrastructure recovery group have been working hard and trying to get the digitization project of permitting processes off the ground to move these construction projects forward without delay and help mitigate the impact of losing tourism revenues. We don't know when tourism will return. We're off to a good start, but still a lot of uncertainty, as you know, going forward.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah. And Governor, I just kind of want to wrap up with the last few minutes that we have. Just talk a little bit about how your government, your administration has been able to manage the COVID crisis over the past 15, 16 months.
First, I would like to thank all the community. Of course, Esther Muñoz, our CEO of the hospital, and Warren Villagomez, our COVID task force. Really, we're just sitting down with these guys, trusting in their decision. Having Dr. Tadala being the first doctor there during this whole pandemic, and educating our community that the decisions we make, the directives that I issue out, won't mean anything if I don't get the community to be part of this success. So one of the first decisions we made was actually do the curfew, 7 o'clock p.m. No one was on the road. I mean, that really locked in everybody. Stay home and stop the spread. And that was the biggest thing, 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. I mean, those are the slogans that we worked on and telling everybody. I remember telling my mom, I love you and I can't come visit you. Since when do you say you love somebody but don't visit? And this is across CNMI. So again, it's just that collaboration. We worked with our first responders, our doctors, nurses, and we continue to have this discussion. And then, of course, with the lack of PPEs across the world, we were able to get some good networks with our friends to get those PPEs here on the CNMI in the islands. when at the time 20% of the health professions were infected with COVID. And just the constant communication with our community and disseminating the right information. That was very critical. And working with our private sectors, understanding that this is what we need to do. When we have directives, whether to close the stores at 2 o'clock, we had everybody in the same room saying, we need to move this vessel and we need to be together in this vessel. So through that leadership with everybody else, we're able to sustain. And I think as of today, knock on wood, I think we're only at 196 positive cases. And that includes travelers coming in and continue to travel. So again, it's that partnership that we have, and I cannot do it alone, but definitely I give kudos to the community.
And also talk about the management of this unprecedented amount of federal pandemic assistance. How did you go about making those decisions? And I wanted to ask you in particular about the ARP funding, which is the most recent one, which might be the last package, I guess, that we'll be getting, the territories, including the mainland U.S. First of all, tell us how you made those decisions about spending, and in particular on Guam, one of the controversies is the ARP payouts to individuals and families. Would you find it within the scope of the rules of disbursement to be able to pay that out now?
Sure. What we did is when ARPA, we call it ARPA. Here, as soon as there was a discussion, Secretary Dave Atalik and I sat down with Lieutenant Governor and the cabinet, looking at the priorities and what is the confine of the restriction, because every subtitles is different, whether it's 604, 603, and where those funds to be used to the municipality as well. But what we wanted to make sure is that we bring back the level of 2019 budget. We're fortunate here because our budget at $200 million, we have close to $500 million on ARPA funds, but want to make sure that we give the whole cabinet members, the departments, helping private sectors. We have believe $500 the stimulus that we're giving out to the community, and that will be like a credit card. Every private stores or entities have a merchant number. So those merchant, you can only use those credit card basically or debit card here at the CNMI. So a person from Saipan can go to Rhoda and still use that card and spend money in Rhoda, or vice versa. You can also pay your utility bills and you can go to the restaurants, but we want that money to stay here in the CNMI, and that will create jobs again. Of course, we're prioritizing our hospital. Our public school system has its own separate funding. But through the infrastructure and recovery program, we want to expedite those projects across the board. We're working with our CUC utility, making sure the infrastructure, water, sewer is done right. I mean, there's so much things that I wanted to share, but at the end of the day, we want to do it right. We want to expedite this because we have limited time to spend. And I'm glad that we've been spending this money already, and we're excited for it.
All right, we are actually out of time. I wish we had more. Thank you very much for joining us. Governor Ralph Torres, Michael Sablan, and Priscilla Yakupov. Thank you so much for joining us today on In Full Zoom.
Thank you.
Take care, Nestor.
I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.